All right, I'm back and I'm just really excited. I've received lots of good reports. There have been a few questions asked, so as we get ready to finish up doing our increases so that we can get our sleeves, get ready to start working on our sleeves, and of course, the excitement you can get to try on your sweater. But while I'm knitting, I thought I would try to answer any questions that I remember or made a note of, for some of my still new knitters. Well, first of all, let me just tell you this little tip as I get ready to knit. When I started knitting, kind of before I started going to yarn shops or working in groups, I could knit. I knew quite a few stitches. I was surprised. I knew how to just from years of just teaching myself. And but as I really start, and I could just knit back and forth. But as I start, as I wanted to knit more, that was the driving force. I wanted to knit something like a sweater or something. And of course, I got into a knit shop, of course, and with friends. And then, I could read patterns. I got patterns off of Ravelry, and I learned to, work patterns. But this came about because I just simply wanted not to have to keep changing everything every time I wanted to knit something. I wanted something very simple that I go to, numbers and my ideas that I can simply go to. And that's all I'm doing is sharing with you how I did it. So one of the first things that I did when I started knitting, and this will help one of my sweet friends, she's more on the new side, and of course she had knitted down a little bit on her sweater, and then she realized, she's made quite a few mistakes, and she said, well, please advise, and I had to break it to her. Oh, had to break it to her. She just had to pull it back. She just had to take the needles out and pull it back, because you can only fix so much. Seasoned knitters, other people could pull out, rip back, kink back, whatever, and then they're able to pick up the stitches. I can pick up the stitches, but you also have to pick up yarn overs. And for a new person, I think that's just too much to ask. I think it's better that you just pull it back. And that's one reason too, once I finished the ribbing on the neck, I took, I had a row of knitted stitches where I put on the markers and a row of purl stitches. So if I made a mistake, I didn't have to go all the way back to the beginning. I do have a row back here that I could pull back. Yes, it's work, but in the long run, it's just going to work out better for you. Or you know what? You're going to give it up and not pick it up, to further on down the road. And just think you could be enjoying it all the time you didn't finish it. Another little tip I want to give, because like I say, I'm no expert knitter, but this is my little tip. When I started knitting things like sweaters and things, remember I always say, I have lots of needles. That's because every time I got a coupon, if I didn't see anything else in the store, I'd go into the store. So I decided I'm going to buy something in that store. Well, I'd buy just another needle, one that I knew that I was going to knit or that I was using at that time. I get fascinated with certain sizes. One time I was fascinated with the number size 6s. Then I started knitting things when I was doing dishcloth with 7s. Then, of course, when I got to sweaters, 8s. And then like these cardigans, 9s. So I just buy a needle that I knew that I was going to use, not just some random number. So this is what I would do to save myself. Well, it didn't work on my gray hair, but it did save myself, stress and just giving up. I would just cast on 2 sweaters. Yes, I said I would just take my number 9. The first sweater would be the one that I was practicing on. You could use the same yarn, or just like I did the other one, you could have a different yarn. But I'd cast on 2 different sweaters, the same stitches and everything. And then I'd start working. And I'd work, and Until I saw, hopefully I didn't have any problems or make any mistakes. But just say, like my friend, she got way down to the bottom, and then she realized that she had missed some yarn overs or some of the increases, so it was not lined up. It was way over, I think she said, and then she had lost stitches in some of the sections. So, you just have to be honest and say, well, for your encouragement, just pull it back. It's just yarn, people. It's worth pulling it back. Nobody's in a race. It's on the YouTube. There's no rush. There's no hurry. But like I say, if I saw that I had really gotten off on one sweater, I would just switch to the next one, to the one I already had. I worked them both up. I would do the neck ribbing on each sweater, and I'd put my markers in, and then I'd lay one aside, and then just like I'm working on this one, I work it down so far. And then once I start checking, if it was correct, I could keep going. And then later on, if I wanted to go back and have the other sweater, well, one part of it's already done. So there's nothing wrong, but that was just a little tip from me. If you knew, sometimes you have to think outside of the box and not wear yourself out or cause yourself stress. It's just yarn. So, cast on 2 sweaters. Just a little tip. All right. Now, I'm going to turn my sweater so that we can get started. And I'm just going to... You were supposed to increase up to at least 2 increases before the number you needed. And I think I might have said the numbers wrong, but like I have 26 increases. So, I worked up to increase number 25, and I've changed it. Now I'm on increase number 26, which is my final increase. If you were on 24, you'd work up to 23. I think that's what I should have said. And then you would make the change that I'm about to show you, and then you'd finish off with increase number 24. So I'm just going to work over, and if I think of any questions that may have been asked, or if I can think of anything else. But yes, don't be afraid. Oops. Don't be afraid if, like I said, I just cast on 2 sweaters. Let me make sure I didn't drop them. 2, 4, 6, okay, 7. All right, here I am at my front edge border. I knit 3. How do you like the border, the little button band so far? Yarn over, knit 2 together, and then knit 2. And it's set in between the top ribbing, and it's going to be set in between the top and the bottom ribbing. So I think it looks really nice and neat, and looks real professional, and I just think that's nice. Of course, we'll be doing other ones. I will find other ones. In fact, I already have one that, I think you're going to love this. Has more lace, and it's really pretty. So I'm just knitting across. I could have had this done, but I just wanted to talk with you a minute. All right. Let's see, was there any other questions that someone asked me about? Should have made a note of them. Did you find nice buttons? Just to make sure they're not too large. Nobody's really I don't think anybody's going to wear the sweater button up. They're more for a statement or decoration. But I found those little small ones, you remember. But we won't have to pick up the button band. And it's always, especially for a new person, to always get the same number of stitches on one side of the button band as on the other. That just comes with experience and practice to try to get them equal. And if I didn't get them equal, sometimes I've had to just say, you know what, I can't take it loose again. Oh, I know what I'm talking. All right, let's go up to the first marker. Here we go. This is where the last 2 increases, everywhere, we want to close up these holes so that we won't have a problem. They've served their purpose. They're an increase, the yarn overs, and they're real decorative. This is Cardigan 101. Nothing to write home about, but just to help me. All right, I knit up to the last stitch before the marker, And then normally, we've been yarning over. And this time we're simply going to make one, just like we've done before. So I look for a place to find a bar. I look for a bar between these two stitches. Just somewhere, find a bar. We're going to increase, but not with a hole. Now I'm simply going to knit through the back loop, just like we did when we did the increase at the top. See, I just put my needle through the back loop, knit that stitch. Now, knit the last stitch for the marker. I slide the marker. Now I have to look for a bar on this side of the marker. Put it on the left-hand needle, knit it through the back loop, and continue to knit across to increase in the next one. So we're dropping the yarn overs and we're simply going back to make one and knit it through the back loop. And I wanted to make sure. Now look, see, it's already, the yarn overs I've already stopped them, and it's going to make a difference. So we're doing it we stopped two increases so that we had plenty of time to make sure that we close off those gaps, those yarn over holes. So let me just see if that was on camera okay. All right, now. All right, as I work over to the next one more marker, we'll do it one more time. And I will check and see. Can you see that? I'll bring it up just a little bit. All right, so a lot of people ask me, well, Jay, what about these stripes? Remember, I had never used this yarn. I just see you guys buying it, and the other day I even bought some of that Bernat pop. Oh, that's pretty. And I thought, well, a lot of people are making shawls and things, but I wanted a sweater because that's what I knit. So I have no idea. So if this is, right now it seems to be self-striping. But as you change the circumference, unless it's made for a certain pattern, the striping may change. They may get narrow, or they may get wider, or I don't know. So I have no idea what the striping will be. But at this point, I just thought it was pretty enough to give it a try. Like I say, I don't have any experience or know too much about this yarn, but I know that it's very popular. All the mandalas and the Bernat Pop and Karen's cakes. So I thought, well, why not just try to see what kind of sweater it would knit. And I could have just knitted one, and it's just like, I don't know. But I thought, well, I'm just going to go for it with the knit along. And whatever it comes out, it just comes out. And I didn't want anything I had to manipulate the yarn. Like, okay, well, I got to try to... No, I just let it come off the skein. I pull from the outside. You can do whatever, however you like. Some people pull from the inside of the cake. I just pull automatically from the outside. I have a little container that I throw my yarn on the floor, and it won't get out, it'll stay in the container, and it just rolls around, and I can just pull from the outside of the cake. So, now if I see there's a problem, if the order changes, like the stripes, then I might would look at that a little more, because the order right now is, the way mine has started, pink and white, and then the lavender, then pink, white. So I would like to keep it, the order. And if I had to manipulate the yarn or whack off some, get to, to cut it or something, just to keep the order. But I'm not going to get into manipulating that. What's the purpose of that? They just got solid. Well, I had a solid one. You see, I did a solid one. All right, I'm coming up to my next increase marker. Can you see that? I go up to the last stitch right before that marker. Now, to close off these yarn over holes, I'm just going to lift up, find a bar, pop it on my left-hand needle. Now, I will knit through the back loop. If I can kind of pick it up on here. There we go. I'd put my needle and knit it through the back loop, just like that. Now I knit that stitch, then slide the marker. Now, instead of a yarn over on this side of the marker, I have to look for a strand there. I put it up on my left-hand needle. Now I'm going to knit through the back loop. Just like that. Just knit it and then continue across. So, this is how we finish up all of the increases. And this is why you need to have, if you've had a problem, don't be afraid. Just, like I say, if it's too much of a problem, you know, one stitch or something, maybe you miss one thing, but if it's not lined up, if you look back and if it's not lined up or if you're way off track, it's going to help you in the long run just to pull the needle out, take your time and pull it back to some place that you recognize or that you feel like that you can pick things back up. But you also have to remember to pick up, if you don't go all the way back to the near the ribbing, then you've got to make sure you pick up the yarn overs. Okay, there we go. Now we're going to continue that. Give you a few minutes to make all your increases and finish so that we can start on the next section. Now, once you finish all the increases, this is where some of the magic is. I call it the little magic. On our schematic, look at your schematic. Once you finish all the increases, cap your needles. I don't think can't tell you how important, how much, especially for someone new. These little caps, they're not that expensive. You get them with a coupon or whatever, or you can just use rubber bands or But I have caps. They work great. Cap your points so that you don't lose any stitches. Because we're going to do something here. We're going to take our schematic, and you'll need your schematic. All right. Now, we see the number that we started with, and now we're trying to get down. We want to increase up to this number, up to the number that we actually did the counting or did the swatch and counted the stitches, whatever, to fit your body. So now you want to cap your points and take each section. Here's my front section. Here's my one front. Count every stitch of that front all the way to the marker. Just count and see if you reach your number. I counted mine. I was right on. I needed 44 stitches, and guess what? I had 44. That's the magic. You go to this front. Don't count all the stitches around. Count each section and compare it with your schematic. See if you were able, that you didn't miss and that it worked out, that the math worked out, and that you were able with 26 increases, you were trying to reach the number for that section. Oops, hit the camera. So I counted that. I counted each sleeve. Now mine is all tangled up here, but I counted each sleeve. Guess what? I got the right amount of stitches. I counted the back. Here's my sleeve right here. Counted my sleeve. Counted the back. And all of my stitches matched my schematic, the numbers that I had on my schematic. So that's what you need to do once you finish all the increases. Then cap your points, and I will come back and we will get ready to, almost ready to that you can try on your sweater. You will need some extra yarn because we'll put the sleeves on some scrap yarn. But you'll get a chance to stick your arm into your sleeve without the needle holding it. And then, of course, we will need your number 9 16-inch circular needles for your sleeve, for each sleeve. So, see you back in just a minute. And hope you, enjoy the magic. All right, so we have finished all our increases. You have counted each section to match it up with your schematic. And now, and then of course purl, you finished your purl row, and now I'm back on the right side, and I'm working over towards my sleeve, because this is where we want to put our sleeve on scrap yarn. This is by the book. Put your sleeve on scrap yarn, and then you will be able to kind of at least put your arm into it and kind of get a feel, or try your sweater on if you want to scrap yarn the whole body of the sweater. But first we're going to get over to our sleeve, take my caps off, and then, like I said, we have finished all the increases. I'm really happy. We just want to make sure that we have all the stitches. All right, when I get to the marker, all right, I'm going to cap that. I just don't want that to fall off. Now I can take off this marker. That's the sleeve marker, really. That's where the sleeve starts. This is where you're going to take, let's see if I've got my yarn needle. Yes, you're going to take a yarn needle and, of course, attach some, I suggest some nice big yarn. Don't get little small weight yarn, like some little, number 3 yarn or something real small. I use big red heart yarn or something really large, so that it will be able, once I'm taking the stitches, once I'm putting them on and then try to take the stitches off, I won't have to wear myself out trying to get those stitches back onto my needle. But we're simply going to go here, and now we're just going to just slide the stitches right off, just like this. Just slide them off onto this needle with this scrap yarn. And I use a nice bright color, so I don't have, make sure you leave a tail now. You don't want to put it all the way through. Slide it off. Just go ahead. Let's see how quickly I can do this. And I couldn't think of, I checked for messages today. I didn't find anyone having, that sent me something that I needed to answer about. See, now I can see that scrap yarn, and it's a nice large yarn. It's not a real thin yarn, something that will be hard to work with. So I got to go all the way across and get these, and notice I'm sliding them on as if I'm going to purl the stitch. I'm going in that direction, and then I pull the yarn through the stitch, through all the stitches as I go across. Be careful just not to lose anything. Well, let's see, can I get it around here? All right, I will continue just to go. And just put them on. Some people can slide more than one on. You can run your needle through like that and slide more than one, instead of doing it one at a time. So you can just flip them off. All right, so now I'm coming up. I'll slide more than one. I'm going all the way through like that. Some people do it like that. And then pull them off. I see my next marker, which will be the end of the sleeve. So I do that. And I'll just pick up a few. Slide those off. Okay, I'm up to the last couple of stitches that represent my sleeve. I take it off, and then now I can just take this marker off. And there I have, and immediately I'm going to cap this side. I don't want to lose anything. I don't want that to be my next problem, is trying to figure out where my stitches went. So now I can pull this needle off and save it for the next side. I'll have another scrap yarn for the next sleeve. So I'll stick my needle over here on the side. And now, be sure you leave nice long tails. And I'll just kind of lightly tie these just to get them out of the way. Because the next thing we need to do, in order to get to the next sleeve, we got to knit across. But there's a big gap in our knitting right here. See, there's that big gap that we need to fill in. So this is a part. So you've checked all your your stitch counts for each section, this is the part you get to increase and give a little more ease to your bust line. So those that were worried about, well, you know, I don't know, I might need a little extra, this is where you can find those extra stitches to go across your bust line. Right here. See, this is under the arm. We're going across. Here's my front right here. So naturally, any stitches I pick up from here to here will increase some of this bust line. See, on the front. Does that make sense? How to decide what to use? So going back to my schematic again. When I needed stitches for my neck ribbing, when I needed to take those, you know, to deduct, I simply took one of the sleeves off. Well, it works the same. This is the way I work it now. I do the same thing when I come to the underarm. I have at least for one sleeve, all I need is just the stitch count from one sleeve. I have at least 8 stitches. Since you reach your stitch count on the schematic, you really don't need 8 stitches. So I'm going to take half, 4. If your schematic calls that you had, you know, 12 arm stitches, sleeve stitches, then you're going to take 6. Just like that. Just divide it in half. And this is what we're going to do. So I'm going to take 4. But like I say, if you're much larger in the breast and you say, well, Jay, I think I might need all 12. Well, all 12, don't forget, you have another sleeve, and that will be 12. So that will be really overdoing it. So kind of trust me on this. It doesn't take that many stitches to enlarge something. So yes, we'll put 4 on this sleeve, and then we will put 4, or you know, in this gap. But when we get to the other sleeve, we'll put 4 more stitches. So that's really 8. And then a couple other little things I have to show you where you will gain a few more stitches. So let's go. I'm doing this one by the book. And then later I'll tell you how I kind of cut out some of these steps. But right now, since this is the way everyone does it, I'm just going to do it too to help you, you know, to make it clear. All right, so we have this gap. Our sleeve is on waste yarn, and I have this gap. And most people just do the backward loop. So I'll just do it. It's not my favorite, but just like I say, for the book, you just simply bring the yarn. I need to cast on 4 stitches on this needle, so that I can continue to knit across the back. So I just take my yarn and take my thumb under, or some people do their finger like this. Some people just do their pointer finger, just like this, and slide that stitch onto the needle, just like that. So you have to go this way with your finger. With your thumb, you go up under like that, and slide it on. So that's 2. Stop. It's going to be important to know. I'm going to, let's see, I don't have any. I'm going to tag this this stitch number 2. I'm going to find a little place here to stick a marker. It's kind of hard to stick it on here. Let me go ahead and make the next one. So here's 3. Now I can tag right between, just so that I'll know that there's 1, 2. I'm doing 4 stitches now. I'm adding 4 stitches. 1, 2. This is going to be 3, and here's my 4th stitch. I need to know where that stitch will be for the underarm. Now, like I say, it's not a lot of stitches, but since I reached my goal, my stitch count, I don't want to overdo. I don't want to over enlarge and then throw my whole sweater out of proportion. So half is enough. So I've got my 4 now, but just in case, sometimes I think that I'm still going to have a gap. So this is what I'll do. I'll do 1 extra, number 5 right there. Then, just like when I join, knitting in the round, I'll transfer that last stitch, it's an extra stitch, over to my left hand needle right there. And then I will knit that stitch, those 2 stitches, the one off this needle and the one I transferred. I will just knit those 2 together, pull it real tight, making sure, hopefully I don't get any kind of gap there that's going to, and then let me just knit a few stitches. Then I will just knit across. and I'll pull it and I'll see, and I have that little spot marked where right in the middle of my 4 stitches I have it marked, because sometimes when you come back and try to find it, you can't find it. I don't know why, sometimes you just get off. So now the next thing is just to knit across to the other sleeve. And I won't do that all the way across on here on camera just to save time, but I want you to see once I turn it around. Here is my sleeve with my, I'm only adding 4 stitches at the bottom of that sleeve. And you'll see that it makes a nice sleeve opening right there. So what you have to do is continue across the whole sweater to the next sleeve, put it on scrap yarn. Then of course you have to purl back. You have to purl all the way back so that we will be on the right side, and I will show you the next step. So continue across and then purl back, and I will see you on the next right side. Oh, that's a jumbled up mess, isn't it? Okay. Well, when I show you the way I do it, you know, after you get a fit, we need to make sure that this sweater fits you first before we do any other little shortcuts. Then I'll show you how I cut this step out, because I already know that the sweater will fit. All right, see you back in just a moment. Now I went ahead and I knitted a few extra rows just so that I could really see my arm space. And if you decide, of course, you've put your scrap yarn into your sleeve. So really now you can try this, at least this one sleeve on. If you have your cap on, and if you'd like to just slip your arm into this side, into one side of your sweater, you can. If you would like to see how these numbers really fit you, then you can start here on one side and actually slip every stitch. After you knit a few rows, I'd go ahead and knit 4 or 5 more rows just like I've done here. Then you can slip the whole body of the sweater along with the sleeves onto scrap yarn. This will be scrap yarn for the sleeves, and then you can do scrap yarn. You can slip the whole body of the sweater onto some scrap yarn and actually try the sweater on as one piece. But then, of course, you've got to go back and pick all those stitches up. But at least you're just picking up stockinette, except the borders. You have to be careful and pick up your border. I just use it, you know, now that I've worked these numbers and I've got several sweaters, you know, I know that these numbers suit my body. They fit my body. I'm pleased with the fit. Let's say it like that. I'm pleased with the fit. And so now, you know, I can just slip one arm in. Just off camera, I made sure I put my arm in and pulled it up to see if I had room. And then, of course, with these additional stitches that we added, the 4 extra stitches, my arm should be fine, you know, to be able to move or to pivot, you know, to do regular movement without having added too many stitches and making a huge armhole or arm space. Does that make sense? All right, so now once you decide, you know, once you get a good fit, you know, that you're happy with it, then we're going to come back and do these sleeves. I'm going to tie this up here. I'm just going to kind of tie this and get it out of the way, just not in a knot, just in a little bow or something, just to kind of make sure that sleeve those stitches stay on that scrap yarn. Now, of course, we have 2. Once I've done this sweater several times, and like I said, and I like the fit, then I skip the scrap yarn. I just completely skip it, go right to my number 9 16 circular needles. See, I've already got them on, and I've showed you this before. You know, those little pencil grips the kids have at school. I just get those at the Dollar Tree, and I cut them in half. Just cut one in half, and then I slip it on. They just make great. They just hold your needles. These stitches aren't going anywhere. So I will skip once we're done, or you do another sweater, then you can skip this part of putting on the scrap yarn. I simply go right to my number 9 circulars, and then I just hold it out of the way while I continue to work the body. Then when I come back, then we get ready, we come back up to work the sleeve. I'll show you how easy this is to have this already on there and how I pick up and finish off these sleeves. Now, there will be some, let's see how many, well, we will do some decreases in the sleeve. We will decrease the sleeve down because it's coming from here, and we have to decrease it down. My sleeves are 3/4 lengths, but you'll be able to decide if you want long sleeves. Mine stop about here, past my elbow. Once I get about 4 inches or so past my elbow, that my elbow can actually bend, not straight out, but that it can bend, and about 4 inches past that, then I start my cuff, and then my cuff is more like a 3/4 length of sleeve, my sleeve and cuff. All right, so just wanted to show you that. So now I suggest that, so that we can get to a good place, I suggest that we continue to work the body now. This will be just knitting back and forth. Make sure that you keep your 2 borders on each front. Your sleeves are secure, either with these little rubber things, or with or even just a rubber band around the 2 points will work, or tips, or the little caps. But you need to make sure they're secure. And let's work all the way down the body. And the body is just how long you want your sweater. And then once we get to the length you want before the ribbing, we'll come back together and make sure that everyone starts your ribbing, and that we're on the same page. How about that? So now you will continue to work the body, and I will see you back as we get closer to the ribbing. And remember, we already had that 1 stitch that we just left in the sweater in the back. So you should wind up with an odd number at the very bottom, so that we can go right into 1 by 1 ribbing to match the top of the sweater. Well, whew. Try your sweater on. I hope it fits. Oh, I hope you've enjoyed it so far. Just take your time. Let's get to the bottom of the sweater, and then the hardest part next is just making sure to pick up our sleeve and continue to knit the sleeve. And voila, we'll be almost done. Yes, it's work, but it's a lot of fun too, since we're knitting together. All right, we're knitting to the bottom of the sweater. See you back. All right, I've been working fast and furious, and I've got at least 8 inches for me from under my arm, from where I've tied off my arm, and I've tried it on, and I was able to get 8 more inches, and now I'm at the bottom of the sweater, and I'm ready to start my 1 by 1 ribbing. Now, let me just say this, because today, even though it was a stormy, wet, really bad rainy day here in Georgia, but when there was a little break in the weather, so I had to dash out to Joann's, because once I got to the bottom of my sweater, like I said, this is my first time using this yarn. I just wanted to see what these different type mandalas and Benet Pop and Sweet Roll or Karen cakes, what the stripes, how they would look, or how they would make up a nice sweater. In fact, some of the bands sometimes have a little top or tank top or scarf or something where they show you what to use, how to use the yarn. But when I got down to the bottom, if you would look, I knew I'm not worried about whether the stripes are wide or small. I didn't want to have to manipulate the yarn. Otherwise, we could just make our own stripes and weave in ends. Like I said, this was strictly just to see what this yarn would do. Now, on my sweater, if you notice, my color, it's the order of the colors that you need to keep track of. my color, and every skein will be different, and every brand will be different. But on this one, it was ivory, lavender, pink, ivory, lavender, pink, the ivory, the lavender, pink. But when I got to the bottom, all my lavender was gone out of the skein I was working on. So I pulled out the last skein I had before I went to Joann's, and there was some, you can see right here, I just kind of peeled this part away. Starting here in the center, there was some more lavender, which is here, and then then pink, and then whatever the next color. So I did have to manipulate the yarn when I got to the bottom so that I can keep the colors in the same order. Your eye will adjust to small and wide stripes, but if you mix up the color, I don't think your eye will adjust. I don't think that would be something, we'd want to do. So I did have to manipulate right here at the bottom. Also, while I was since I was going to Joann's, before I left, I looked at my sleeve because they're both ready to go. When we get through with the body, we're ready to go back up to the sleeves and start working on those. And of course, I just used the last skein. I didn't know, so that meant so far I've used 3 skeins, and I picked up 2 more. I just went ahead and picked up 2 more, so I didn't have to go back out. But here's my color combination again. It's the ivory, the lavender, the pink, ivory. So I looked for a skein. I looked for 2 because the sleeves are in the same place because they were knit on the same row. And I found 2 skeins where it started with the ivory. It started ivory, lavender, pink, ivory, lavender, pink. My color order would be the same. So think of that. If you see that if your skeins don't have, my skeins don't have a lot of yarn, so, I had to go back and buy some extra skeins. But if you have one of the larger brands, they may have more yarn. But here we go. So back in the house now, the rain is just quietly coming down. And at the bottom of my sweater, I have knit to the length I want. Now I'm ready to start my ribbing. Just like at the top, we started on a wrong side row, and we ended on a wrong side row. So I want to be on a wrong side row once I start the ribbing. And the border, this button band, we will stop it as we go into the 1x1 ribbing. We won't have to do that anymore. So let's go on a wrong side row. As you can see, I'm just going to work a few stitches here. Oops, and I've already dropped one. And put that back on right quick. Here we go. Okay, so you remember the first stitch, no more borders, we're done. Either slip or knit. I knit, so I'm going to knit the first stitch, and I can see this is a wrong side, the purl side. So I go right into my ribbing now. I purl 1, yarn in back, knit 1, purl, knit, purl, knit. I can drop my marker now that separates the band, and let me just check my camera. Yeah, okay. I think you'll be able to see that. All right. So I will continue across. That's a knit, purl, knit. So now I'm ready for a purl, and I will knit. And purl, knit. Here goes a purl. Then I will knit. Now, we all did at least 7 rows at the top. On the bottom of the sweater, because I want more weight, and on the bottom, I tried to do, or at least on my original, I tried to go all the odd numbers are wrong side. So if I'm starting on the wrong side, I want to end on the wrong side. So I go twice as many as, say if we started at 7, I have to go at least 13 or 15 rows so that I end on a wrong side. The last row is you will be on the wrong side, and that's the row you will bind off in pattern. You will bind off the sweater, the ribbing at the bottom, starting on a wrong side row, and stay in the 1x1 ribbing. So I'm just going to continue across, and I'll see you in just a minute at the other end. Okay, so I worked the first row of my ribbing, and it was on the wrong side, and of course I turned the work, and now I'm on the right side. We have ended the front button band. We have ended that border. So now we're just working in straight 1 by 1 ribbing. And did you notice, do you remember, that we left that one stitch in, and you didn't even have to think about it, did you? You just start doing the knit 1, purl 1, knit, fall right into the rhythm, and at the end you have the right number of stitches, because we did leave that one stitch in the back. So, see, that was a good thing. Okay, so now I've turned the work, and I'm on the front side, and I just want to kind of just make sure everyone's on the same page. Everyone, you've taken off, you can just remove those markers. You don't need the front button band anymore. And of course, the first stitch, either knit it or slip it. Then read your stitch. I'm on the front side, so I know I'm going to start with a knit 1 now, purl 1. You can just read them across. Knit 1, all right. Knit, purl, yarn in back, knit, in front, purl. And it takes a few rows for it to start to pop out, so you can really see how nice it's going to look. And you just keep reading your stitches across. That's a purl stitch. I can just look at it now. See, that's a knit stitch. Purl. And if you get lost, just go back and look, or read your stitches. Knit, purl, knit, purl, knit. So the next stitch should be a purl. There it is. Purl stitch and knit. So now we will continue to work in our ribbing, our 1 by 1 ribbing. And like I said, since I had 7 rows, we all started with 7 rows at the top to make the bottom look really in proportion and nice, and it gives it weight. You need to double that number at least. Go. If I had 7, I'm gonna go at least to 13, or go all the way to 15. The last row will be on the wrong side, and that's the row that you will bind off in this 1 by 1 rib pattern. So I'll see if I can, it may not be on this tape, but I'll see how far I can get, because we've got to get to the sleeve. So I wanted to get this part, all this, so I can get it to him. So you've been asking me, Jay, I'm ready to go. Look, I was like, oh my gosh, when I had to go out and get that yarn down, I thought, oh gosh, don't let anything else go wrong. This is my first knit along, people. I want a thumbs up. Okay, so let's work on our ribbon, and take care.